Our next project takes us outdoors, and one of the reasons for that is that landscaping is a $50 billion industry and a great way to add value to your home. And much like building a jacuzzi or an outdoor sauna, building an outdoor fireplace, a great way to add value to your home. Well, outdoor fireplace is very, very popular down south, but a lot of people up north are starting to build those as well to spend a little more time outdoors when there's fewer months to spend outdoors because it gets a lot colder. That's the project we're undertaking today at this home in Medina, Minnesota. It's nestled on a beautiful 1-acre lot, and they've got a view that they absolutely love. That's where we're going to be building our fireplace. This project should take you between 3 and 5 days, depending on the size of the fireplace that you order. And on a scale of 1 to 10, we're going to call this project a 7. Here are the tools you'll need to prep the site. Here are the materials you'll need. Once you've decided on the location for the fireplace, you need to prep the area. And to do that, we called in expert landscaper Nick Tamble to take us through the steps.
Thanks, Paul. We're at the site of the fireplace and we're about to begin excavation. But before we do, there's 2 things you want to remember. Number 1, contact your local utilities so that they mark any underground electrical or gas lines. And number 2, contact your city to make sure you're abiding by any city codes. Now that you've selected your site, you want to make sure you get things down to bare soil. I have my friend Brad here, and he's going to help me measure out the fireplace footing. I'm just going to do 4 corners where the footing is going to be. When you're installing your foundation for your fireplace, the most important thing you want to remember is make it bigger than the footprint of your fireplace. Now we're going down 6 inches because of our northern climate here. We're creating a thicker pad, and we're also going to be excavating 48 inches down on holes in the corners so that we have ultimate stability in our climate so that it's not going to allow for any shifting or anything like that. Okay, time to frame it up here. We're going to be using 2x4s. These are actually recycled boards that I have from another different project, but they're going to work just fine for framing up. You don't need to use green treated. These are only going to hold the outsides of the cement until they cure. We're going to go ahead and start measuring out. Now, since we're just cutting 2x4s here, I'm using an old-fashioned handsaw here. All right, we'll cut 3 more pieces and nail them all together. Okay, as you can see, when we excavated this out, there's plenty of room on all the sides for us to build this and not run into, dirt or have to excavate more with shovels. This is going to be the footprint for the fireplace. Now, we are using 2x4s and we're making a 6-inch slab. So when we set this and get ready to pour concrete, we're going to raise this up a couple inches and frame dirt around it, which will hold the cement in when we start to pour. Okay, Brad's setting nails into the 2x4s for framing. And once he gets one side in, we're gonna measure corner to corner to make sure we have a square footing. All right, we got it framed up, and just to be sure, I wanna measure inside, make sure we're gonna cover the cement footing. 66, that's good. And 49, great. We're going to be augering footings into this fireplace. It's going to create extremely stable surface for our fireplace. Now, in our northern zone, it is important to consider our freeze thaw. And this may be a little bit overkill, but we want to be sure that this fireplace is built to last. Now, if you decide to use an auger like this for boring holes, you want to make sure if you're dealing with clay soil that you have like probably 2 people using it on either sides, because there's going to be a lot of torque that happens with these machines, and you don't want to hurt your arms. As you can see, when we're doing this, we're lifting this auger up and down at intervals. That's bringing this clay soil up to surface, because if we try to go straight down all the way, the auger gets stuck, just kind of like when you're drilling into wood. If you're boring in really deep on wet wood, it'd be very hard to get your drill bit out or continue to go. So we're going up and down, up and down. Okay, for those of you who are living in a northern climate, again, we are putting footings underneath our slab. And what we need to do is make sure we're at a depth of about 42 inches, because that's the depth that the frost will go down to from the top of the ground. So here we are showing about 40 inches, but remember, our slab is going to be 6 inches thick. So you could add 6 inches onto that and know that we are at a good depth here.
All right, our next step is going to be to mix concrete. The conventional way of doing it would be in a wheelbarrow with a rake, a hoe, or a shovel. I have a little trick that I'd prefer to use, and that is a heavy-duty drill with a paddle wheel on the end. We're using 60-pound bags of concrete today, and what I've found to mix it perfect in is a coffee container. We're just going to pour that into the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket. Always make sure you put the water in first, otherwise you're going to have a really hard time mixing it. Then we're going to pour the whole bag. If your drill isn't as powerful as this one, which happens to be a 9-amp, you may want to put part of the bag in first and then complete it, top it off afterwards. It helps to go at an angle like this so that it stirs it up off the bottom and brings it up to the top and mixes everything well. All right, the convenience of mixing it this way is I've already got the concrete in my container ready to pour into my footings. And repeat.
Okay, we have our concrete footings poured, and before they start to set up, we're going to get our 2x4 frame in place. We're going to use these wood stakes that you saw earlier to frame in this 2x4 structure. What this is going to do is going to allow us to float this 2x4 structure up onto these stakes. Because we have a 6-inch pad, we're going to have a little gap here that we're going to backfill with our clay. We're going to take screws, go in the back side of this wood stake right into the 2x4, and then level it. Come up. This is a very important step in this process, because this level that we set this footing at, this is the level they're going to be working off of. What we're going to do next is we're going to backfill our sides to fill this void right here of this dead space with this clay soil. Basically, we're just going to start packing it in. And we're going to create this vertical edge from our 2x4 down so that the cement's just going to follow that edge and come right up to the top. Okay, we are ready to put our cement reinforcement mesh down first. That's going to go down first because when we have our rebar pieces inside of our footings, we can lift up this as a unit in case it settles down too close to the dirt level. So we want to have this about midway through so that there's cement underneath and on top. Okay, we started with 10-foot pieces of rebar. We cut them down to 5-foot lengths. We have them all ready right here, and what we're gonna do next is we're gonna bend them.
What we're shooting for is to have this at least 2 feet in each direction. And the way we're gonna do that is by sliding the tube up to the top, stepping on it, and there we go. And we're going to do that for 2 pieces in each one of our frost footings. The reason we're putting these in is that so in the winter, when the slab heaves a little bit, it doesn't separate from the frost footings. It all comes up as one piece and settles back down as one piece. There you go.
All right, nicely done. All right, when we pour cement, we want to start on one side and work in one direction. That's why we have our screed bar, which is basically just a 2x4 that's resting on our sides. We're going to use that to pull the cement and create our level. We left our 2 stakes on the end so that our screed bar is our backdrop. So when we pour more cement, we can go higher than our sides and still be okay. Okay, as soon as we see the cement start to separate from our board right here, that's where our next pour will be. So basically this is how much we have screeded so far. We have about 2/3 left. Now, if you're doing this right, you're gonna see that you have a little waste coming off the sides. That means you have enough concrete in here that's all the way to your edges. Now we're using this back and forth motion this whole time that's really helping settle all of the any larger aggregates in our cement and having all of this fine silty material come right to the top, which is going to give us our smooth surface. With that, our screed is finished. Now, this cement is going to take about 24 hours to set up, and that means, you know, 1 full day before you can start building your fireplace on it. Basically, what you're going to do now, sit and wait 24 hours.
Okay, 24 hours, it's dry, and that's good timing because our kit's on the way. Okay, so it might not look like a fireplace yet, but it will. This is Tim Hinker, a local contractor who specializes in installing these fireplaces. This is the biggest one that come.
Yes, the 48-inch. They also have a 24-inch and a 36-inch.
And pretty heavy. We had ours delivered. Is this something that someone could pick up themselves, or what do you recommend?
They could if they had a larger truck, but it's definitely worth the money to have your distributor deliver them, then they can place it right where you need it.
Save the transmission, let them do the hard work.
Exactly, yes.
And is this different than other types of fireplaces? It looks like it's all inclusive.
Yeah, the Stone Age kits are really easy to put together, and because everything is here, the engineers there have created a modular system so that if you know how to mix up a little bit of mortar, you should be able to put it together.
It's kind of like putting together a puzzle?
Exactly, yep, and everything is on the pallet when it gets here except the mortar. So you've got the chimney
and the, yep.
Yep, with the clay flue, we've got the fireplace additive for the mortar, we've got the clay brick, and it's pretty much turnkey.
Instructions.
Yeah, if you're into that kind of thing.
You know, a lot of people throw away instructions. I think I might read these today.
Not a bad idea. All right, so let's get this thing undone, and what we want to do is get all these pieces off of here and stage so that they're easily accessible as we build it up.
Okay.
So start right here and throw this in the wheelbarrow.
Okay, see you later. Okay, Tim, here's the last piece.
Excellent. You know, one thing they don't mention in the instructions is that your first couple of pieces are actually on the bottom of the pallet. So it's a really good idea to go ahead and get everything off the pallet, lay it out here so that when we start building, we'll be able to find the pieces very easily and be able to put them up.
Good way to double check inventory, make sure everything's here too.
Exactly.
Well, we've got our base over there. Anything we need to do before we start laying this out, or?
Well, we got, with the concrete, we definitely want to make sure we're squared up. So I think we'll set some chalk lines so we have some guidelines and then we can start building.
Let's do it.
We've got the pad poured, but we want to make sure we square up our fireplace on top of the pad and get it centered. So we made some marks and we're going to come off of one edge and measure off and make sure that we're square all the way around on the four sides. So we're setting up here is getting our square to the pad, make sure that we've got a perimeter all the way around so that when we set our veneer stone on, there's still some support on the outside of the structure that'll hold up that veneer stone. So we want to make sure we're fairly even on all four sides, although we don't need to be perfectly square with the concrete pad. We do need to make sure that we're at least fairly even on the perimeter around the outside.
So if I mix up a regular bag of mortar, working time
is hour to 2 hours.
And I mix up this with the high temp additive?
You know, definitely working probably 15 or 20 minutes before we have to start wetting it down again.
Okay, no messing around once we get it mixed up.
Yeah, let's get this going.
Once the base is level and squared up, it's time to build the firebox. Okay, Tim, here's the mortar.
Excellent.
Talk me through it.
So we're going to go ahead and get some of the mortar put down on our guidelines. And basically we're going to the guidelines are on the outside of our fireplace, so we're just going to come right along, put a little bead of mud on and get our first piece set here.
This looks like about a 3-inch bead there?
Yeah, about 3 inches wide. We'll set that piece on there and we're going to squish it down and clean up that bottom edge.
All right, let's get the piece.
All right.
The firebox, which is essentially a storage box for your wood, can be open in front or in back. For our project, the firebox opening will be in the back. Oh, about 150 pounds for this piece, huh?
Yeah, it's one of the little ones.
Yeah. All right. Lose my hand. No. So I'll just line it up with the front?
Yeah, use our lines and make sure we...
I got this if you want to grab the level.
All right.
Of course, the next thing we need to do is make sure this is plumb and level. A level on top, it might have to come up or come down. We just use a dead blow hammer and
then we can bring this side up just a little.
Okay.
There we go. And we get it.
Now, do you have to shim this or anything, or?
No, actually, with the mud down there, it actually stays up on its own pretty good.
Okay.
And then we'll get the other pieces, and that'll help hold it up.
All right.
we should be set.
Okay, a little more mortar on the side.
Yep.
Get the side pieces. Might notice this hammer that we're using, it's not a ball peen hammer, it's not a rubber mallet. It's called a dead blow. It's got lead inside of it. Just shake it, you can kind of hear the lead go. And the reason we use a dead blow like this, it's not going to damage the stone like a solid surface would. Kind of transfers that lead shot as we go forward. So it settles everything, but it won't damage the stone. Good tool. The legs provided with the kit are 18 inches tall and put the Firebox about 24 inches off the finished grade. If that height is not desired, discard the legs and build the base out of concrete blocks. Once the back piece is set, you're going to butter its sides with mortar before bringing in the side pieces. And I can see where those snap lines come in handy now.
Yeah, they make all the difference when you're trying to set these the right way.
Now also, we've got a smooth side on the inside and kind of a rough side on the outside.
Yeah, that's in the manufacturing process, you're going to get that. We want to try to keep the smooth sides in, because when we put the veneer on the outside, that gives the mortar for the veneer something to really grab onto.
Yep, makes sense. Come out a little bit.
There you go. How are we looking?
Excellent. After matching up your sides with the back piece, you'll want to make sure each piece is level and plumb. So always a little bit of adjusting as you go. The base is really the critical element here. If you don't get the base level, nothing else is going to be.
Exactly. So this is definitely the most important step.
And once everything is level, just clean up the joints. We mortared up the tops of our Firebox and then brought in our base plate. This is when it helps to have a few friends. Now for this base plate, line it up with a very back edge.
We're going to go with the back edge, yep. So we got to kind of slide it. We're going to pick it up and slide it.
Yep. The base plate will line up with the back edge of our Firebox so that it comes up just short of the front of our Firebox. This will allow us space to set in our Hearth stone. You guys are pretty good.
Pretty good right there,
Yeah.
huh? That wasn't so tough.
Okay, so next is the back plate and the sidewalls. What's involved there?
Well, the back plate is literally the back side of the fireplace, and the sidewalls are going to lock everything in. That's going to get us up to the chimney height, and then we can start setting the chimney.
Okay, a little more mortar, huh?
Yep, more mortar.
Okay. In this step, we're literally putting together a puzzle. Just add the pieces in their numbered order, mortar them in place, and check for level. Then repeat and repeat. So we got a couple more pieces that go on here, some slanted pieces and the back header, and that means some more mortar here. And here's a tip for you when you're installing mortar. A lot of times what a lot of people will do is just slather on the mortar in one continuous bead. But really the goal is to create a little channel right down the center. This is for two reasons. When you put the piece on, it's going to evenly distribute that mortar. Also create a little suction cup so it'll hold the piece in place a little bit better. So make that channel. That'll hold your pieces on a little better.
This is the slanted side.
Okay. After setting the squared pieces, next comes the slanted ones. These pieces will help us create the top of the Firebox, which leads into the flue for the chimney. Always make sure to use a healthy dose of mortar for each piece and continually check for level and plumb. The last thing anyone wants is a crooked chimney.
Occasionally when you are putting these pieces together, we're going to lose some mud in the joint. So we want to make sure that we do have solid mud all the way through there. So using a little tuck pointer tool allows us to get in there after the fact and fill these joints up to make this as strong as we can make it.
So as you're working on this project at home, you can see we've got a firebox, but we can't build a fire in the firebox yet. We have to insulate it with Firebrick first, and got to do a layout, right?
Yep. Yeah. So what we're going to start with is basically dry setting these before we put the mortar in. So I put a mark here right in the center of the box, and that's where we're going to want to lay these up. So if we just set them in, we're going to do this without a joint on the Firebrick. And you can see when I go down the center, I'm going to end up with a space at the end. So as we lay these out, now we can make some cuts along the outside edge. Our bond is right down the center and everything looks nice and even.
Evenly spaced, just like laying out tile basically. You don't want one big chunk on one side, one big chunk on the other.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
Let's mix up the mortar.
All right, let's go.
The mortar to use for the Firebricks is a high temp mortar, which is essentially a high temp mortar mix added to regular mortar so that it has more elasticity to expand and contract with the heating and cooling of the firebox.
One of the benefits of the Stone Age kit is that it comes with everything, including that high temp mortar mix. And this stuff, the directions are right on the can and how to mix it up, but we want to use it, mix it up a little bit wetter than a typical mud because it does dry and set up a little bit faster because of that additive.
So once we start mixing, once we start buttering the Firebricks, it's no messing around.
No messing around. And you will continually add a little bit of water as you need to, but definitely don't want to mix more than one bag at a time if you're going to be new to this and slow in putting these brick in place.
There you go.
And this, you don't need a whole lot of mud on here. Big thing is just come right down the brick, and we're just doing the edges. It's called buttering the brick.
Making that little suction cup there.
Yep.
No joints, so we're just pushing it right tight into there. Thank you. By the way, that's Jeff. I got a little space here, so this is where we need to get a measurement and get Jeff working over there. It looks like, boy, 3 3¼ And this does kind of angle back a little bit, so I suppose 3 inches will be fine.
Yeah, 3 inch should work.
All right. Look at that. You've got the angle and everything.
He's a pro.
Good.
He
That
is.
guy's good.
Next thing you know, he'll be asking for money.
You okay with a little gapper here? Or?
Yep. Push it this way, and then we'll fill the gap.
Okay.
One thing to remember too when you're using these trowels with the mud, sometimes you bounce it, takes the air bubbles out, and it sticks a little bit better and gives you a nice clean seam.
So Tim, are these Firebricks going to be perfectly level in here?
Well, you want to get them as consistent as possible, but really just getting them flat and making sure there's not too many bumps in here is going to be good enough.
Here, let me show you something. You can see this mortar here right next to the brick. If you've got a second, just scrape that away there so it doesn't set up. If you're waiting for cuts, make it a lot easier to set those bricks if that mortar doesn't set up for you. So process pretty straightforward. Just kind of put the puzzle together. We're staggering our seams here for a nice finished look there as well, and then come back along the side, and then what is it, back first and then sides, or?
Yeah, do the bottom, the back, and then the two sides. It'll give you a nice finished look.
And again, we're doing this now. We've got a couple more pieces that go on here. We could have put this Firebrick on after those pieces are on, but this is nice and wide open. A lot easier to get to, saves a little headache.
Well, I tell you what, I don't want to be hitting my head on the arch when we're building it later.
You might notice we don't have the Firebrick all the way up. Normally we do it that way, but we've got some weather rolling in, so we have to continue building the top to make sure that we don't get too much moisture inside here. So, little change of plans. It happens.
Ready for us?
Kinda. Let's give it a shot.
All right.
Our next step is to add the front header. This piece can either be shaped as an arch, like ours, or a square. Depends on your style preference. Now, as you place the header, make sure to use plenty of mortar between the joints. And again, continue to check for plumb and level. Yeah, it looks real nice. Next, we're going to build up the chimney. This requires two very large angled pieces that will create the throat of our fireplace. And of course, that means more mortar.
We're going to go halfway, about right here, and all
Okay.
the way along the back.
Okay.
Looks like we're about ready for it. This is the big piece.
Gonna get a little work on, aren't we?
Yeah,
All hands on deck.
I think so.
You want to put that edge on there?
Lost my wrist. Yeah, put the edge on and roll it forward.
Okay.
Get on there, Jeff.
There we go. I got the back, guys. Holy moly.
It's like it was meant to be there.
I think it was.
Not bad.
Nice job.
Now only one more to go.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Before we add the front piece, we again check plumb and level.
Yeah, as we do this, we're squishing some mud out of some areas and not squishing it out of others. It's going to affect how level it is. So if we need to, that's where we can prop up the one side, get the tuck pointer out, get the mud back into that joint. But when these two go together, we may have to do some of that adjustment in there.
And are we going to put some mortar here too?
Yes.
Okay, so mortar here, 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 and
Exactly.
the front piece goes on the same way as the back one. And again, adjust as you go. Because we've chosen to build the 48-inch fireplace, it requires a throat adapter. So on the smaller units, we wouldn't use this throat flue adapter?
No, this is strictly for the 48-inch, and this is for the wider opening in the fireplace. Requires a taller chimney to get more draw so we don't have smoke coming out the front.
Okay, that makes sense. Again, it's the same drill. Adjust for level and add more mortar. Next up, we're stacking the pieces for the flue. And this is the actual flue, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Stay right here. Okay. Ooh, I gotta get down there. Here we go. Ready, Jeff?
Oh, I'm glad you got it. One down, 3 to go. For the exterior of our fireplace kit, we decided to go on the hunt. So we headed over to Hedberg Landscape and Masonry, and we talked to Nathan, who had some great ideas.
Hi, my name is Nathan Jorgensen, and I'm a professional exterior designer, and I'm here to talk to you about all sorts of different masonry veneers that you can use on your outdoor fireplace. And when you're doing a masonry project, there's two different kinds of stone you can use. There's natural stone and manufactured stone. In natural stone, there are two types as well. There's a full 4-inch veneer, which needs a footing and takes a lot of work to do. There's also a natural thin veneer, which is a really great product because it's easy to work with, and it's light, and it's great for a do-it-yourselfer. This is a really great example of a natural thin veneer. You can see how thin it is. It's going to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches thick. It weighs about 12 pounds a square foot. That's why it can be laid without a foundation. This is an example of a natural 4-inch material. This is how it comes from the quarry. You can see how deep it is. It gives it a really substantial look. However, it is really heavy and needs to be laid on a foundation. The installation process is also a little more difficult because you actually need to course out when you're laying it. So you lay a little bit and then you wait and you lay a little bit more. So it's a little more difficult to install than a natural thin veneer. Here's some examples of natural stones that come from the same quarry. On the top here we have a split face material. And that material is very abundant in the quarry and it's easy to find, making it really cost effective. On the bottom panel here, we have a weathered edge material. And that weathered edge material is where the sun, the rain, and the wind have hit that same product as we saw on the top, but it's hard to find, it's more rare, making it more expensive. In the middle, we've created a blend where we blend the split face material and the weathered edge material, giving you something that's really cost effective and gives you a lot of color variation. Your other option for a masonry veneer is going to be manufactured stone. And that's going to be a little bit more affordable. It's going to be around $9 to $11 a square foot depending on your retailer. So there are many different kinds of styles of stone that you can use. We have a dry stack material, which is usually a little bit thinner and there's no mortar between those pieces, so it gives you a really tight look. There's also ledge stone, and those pieces are going to be a little bit longer and a little more narrow, and it's going to give you a really horizontal look. There's also a more rectangular pattern, and there's also web wall materials, which are really irregular, and those ones kind of give you a more rustic look. One of the great things about manufactured stone is once you've selected the profile that you like, there's a lot of different color options. As you can see here, we have the same profile in 3 different colors, and they range greatly. Another thing you want to consider is whether or not to use a mortar color, and there's a lot of pros and cons to that. Mortar colors are great for warming up your mortar joint and for creating a look that maybe you couldn't achieve otherwise. One con to using a mortar color is that sometimes it can wash out the material that you're using and make it look really monochromatic. When you have your outdoor fireplace, it'll be important to have a hearth and maybe a mantle. The hearth is really nice because you can sit and be more intimate with the fireplace. You can get those made out of natural materials that are in slab form, so you can get one solid piece. So the decisions you'll need to make are whether or not you want to use a manufactured or natural stone, whether you need a full 4-inch veneer or a natural thin veneer, if you're going to have a mortar joint and how you're laying the stone, what color of mortar you're going to use, and whether or not you need a hearth and a mantle.
So now it's time to make our fireplace look beautiful. We have chosen a Chilton stone thin veneer to match the homeowner's existing facade. And thin veneer as opposed to a full veneer, just explain that once.
Well, with a thin veneer, what they've done is they've taken a larger stone and they've cut it down. The benefit to that is you need much less of a footing. So we have here is just a little bit of a concrete ledge. If we were going to use a full veneer, there's a lot more weight to that stone, and we definitely need to get down and hit a frost footing for that.
Sometimes when you think of a thin veneer as opposed to a full veneer, everything seems thin, but a full veneer is really a very, very thick stone.
Yeah, it's like this corner piece here would be about a 4-inch veneer without anything cut out of the center of it.
And it doesn't really seem like a veneer, does it?
No,
it seems like a full stone.
Yeah, much heavier and harder to work with as well.
And when we're starting with this, typically the layout is going to start from the corners and then work your way in, right?
Yep, yep. And the reason for that is as we start our corners, we can kind of set our line, and we'll alternate these corners to get our bond off, and then we can work to the center and make our cuts in the center so that we can kind of hide them a little bit.
And I know I've done a few of these in the past, and the typical best thing to do is get a whole bunch of stones laid out, because this essentially is like a jigsaw puzzle with no pattern to it. You're going to create the pattern. So you might have little tiny pieces like this, you might have big fat pieces like this. It all depends on how it's going to look and what's going to lay out best for you. So best thing is get a few boxes, lay them all out, find out what works out, start laying it in.
One thing you can do to help improve efficiency on your site is to set yourself up with a workstation. We made ours very simple with a couple of sawhorses and a plank, but you can very easily use any kind of 2x12s or 2x10s to set yourself up. So what we want to do is create an area for our stone. We want a lot of stone to choose from as we do this. So we've got corners set up, we've got flat set up, and we move right on down to our tools. So we've got our mud board, our trowel, our brush, our level, anything that we're going to be using for this project is all right here and basically set up parallel to your work site so that it's all easily accessible. It's really good to help save your back as well. One of my favorite things about doing home projects is always the excuse to buy a new tool. One tool I picked up recently is this 4-inch angle grinder, and that's going to help us a lot on this project. As we're building with this natural stone, the pieces are not equal and they're not going to all go together exactly right, so we're going to have to cut a few of them. No matter what stone you choose to cover your fireplace with, there's a couple of things that you want to consider. What we have here on our finished fireplace is a random ashlar pattern, and basically it's a very linear pattern where we're taking larger stones, combining them with smaller stones to break up that horizontal line. So here we have a large stone into 2, we've got 2 stones into 3. A big thing to consider when laying this though is not to have vertical joints that are too tall because they really stick out. If you're going to use a rounder, more random stone, the horizontal line is not going to be as big of an issue, but you still want to make sure that you don't have a big vertical line as you go up the fireplace. All right, I think that's the last one. Let's get rid of this table and go get the hearthstone. Next step before the hearth is we got to make sure we've got mud down all along here, because this is what's going to be supporting our hearthstone. So we're going to put a pretty good bead across the front, and we also want to make sure that we got a pretty good butter line back here so that we can seal that up as well.
67.5.
So we got about 3 inches on each side. Ready?
Yep.
Go.
Exactly 4.
Now, because of the weight and the depth of this stone being overhanging as far as it is, we need to make sure these support beams are in so that this thing doesn't tip on us before the mud is dry. Now that the hearthstone is in, we're going to take our corners, we're going to wrap the opening, the mouth of the fireplace, and we're going to take those same corners, get them kind of cut to fit, and we're going to do a nice design piece over the arch. Once we've completed that, we can lay the stone up the chimney. We'll have it all wrapped up and doing our marshmallows. Squish it in. We'll need to do a little support all the way around these guys, so you'll just want to do a couple at a time to get that to stay, and we'll continue that all the way around. As you complete each section of stone, you should have joints that look something like this, where it's filled out to the front. We still have one more step left to make sure that we get a nice, clean, finished appearance. We want to make sure that the mortar is set up so that as you push it with your finger, it's firm and doesn't squish in. When you get to that point, you want to pull out our tuck pointing tool that we used earlier, and we start to scrape the joints. This technique is called raking, and we're actually going to be removing some of the mortar that we installed, but what this does is it exposes the edges of the stone and gives a nice, finished, clean appearance. So we get as far as we need to get, we pull out a wire brush. This cleans up the dry overspill, so to speak, of the mortar, and then the final step will be to take the whisk broom, clean up all the little loose ends that are laying around, and it gives you a nice finished sharp edge, and we're all done.
When deciding the type of fireplace you want to build, consider the many choices you have on the way your fireplace will look and feel. There is irregularly placed stone for a more rustic look, limestone for a sleeker, cleaner look, and even stucco for that warm southwestern look. Also, consider your options for mantles. Your mantle could be small. You could go with no mantle at all. You could even use wood. You could even make your fireplace part of an outdoor kitchen. The possibilities are numerous. Let your creative side take hold, or just let your wife take a look. As you can see, there's something for everyone. So all in all, a pretty involved project. What a beautiful looking fireplace. But don't get tempted. Remember, you have to wait 21 days to let everything totally set before you fire it up. But just think about it. Won't that be nice? Sitting back, relaxing, enjoying the sunset with that beautiful fire. I think you know what I'm talking about. So let's take a look at the numbers. It took us 2 weekends to build the fireplace ourselves at a cost of $3,500 for the materials. If we were to hire this project out, it would cost about $10,000. The $6,500 is a pretty good savings considering landscaping can increase the price of your home. On a scale of 1 to 10, the estimated added value for this project is an 8.